What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Cracking day out here in Vancouver. Sun is shining, pretty cold though. Got ourselves an L Timmy Hortons. Had a good night last night, met a couple of poker friends from dinner who are over from Ireland. Had some nice food, a couple of beers. One of the lads is a sicko playing AK short deck pots in the middle of dinner. You can see that here.
That's cool. Children's Sister Mary's obviously was like really young when he left. And like they're clearly like
fucking Alexi, man.
Also ran pretty well. I won the flip, so didn't have to pay for dinner or my drinks, which is always nice.
I'm pretty good at these, by the way. Okay, it's my pleasure to pay for it. No worries.
Hopefully we get some run good today. I will announce the winner for the $50 from the last episode here. Now that we got that bit of run good at the dinner, we're heading to Parq today. Let's see if we can get some run good now. Peace. What's the story? We are back with another poker vlog. Back at the local this time, Parq Casino. We're jumping into 1-3 streets, trying to get back on the horse. We've been taking a couple of hidings lately, so we're going to put people on the other end of that today. Jumping into 1-3 streets, 400 max buy-in. First hand to kick off the vlog. There's a limp in middle position for the button raises to $20. We look down at ace-3 of clubs in the small blind. We're going to 3-bet this here as a bluff. We don't want to do too much flattening in the small blind. We're getting after it today. Foot to the floor, 6 gear. We're going to go after these. So we make it 75 to go and just a button calls. Heads up to the flop and it comes down a pretty terrible one. It comes down 6, 7, 8 with 2 hearts. So terrible board for our range, terrible board for our hand. Don't think we want to do much betting here. The button is just going to have a way bigger nut advantage here. We're going to check it over to him and he decides to check back. Turn comes the 9 of diamonds, bringing a 4-liner to a straight. Think we're just going to have to wave the white flag here because we have basically nothing going for us. I think if we start bluffing this hand, we're just bluffing way too many hands. We're at the bottom of our range now, but I think we can have better hands to bluff stuff with. Maybe something if we had like King Jack, at least we have a good shot to a bigger end of a straight, stuff like that. So we're just going to check, wave the white flag, not how we wanted the first hand to go. He fires out about at $80 and we send our cards into the muck. We look down at King Queen off under the gun. We're going to bang this one up here. We open to $15 and get 5 callers, including the big blind. No respect here at this table. Flop comes down, pretty good one. It comes King, King, Jack with 2 diamonds. So we flop trips. Probably have the best trips here as we more than likely would have heard from Ace King. So when it gets checked to us, we're going to continue with a C-bet. We continue with a small size and we go 1/3 and bet $25, which we usually use our small sizings in these multi-way pots. I also think we definitely could have went bigger, especially because no one would pick up on if we just went bigger with our value and we could just continue going 1/3 with our semi-bluffs and stuff. I think we're not really going to get exploited at these stakes, but we end up going 1/3 and only the big blind calls. Turn now comes to 2 of clubs, a complete brick. We're going to keep betting for value when he checks to us. I think we're going to go a bit bigger now. If he has a king, we want to start shoveling more money in the pot. If he has a flush draw, he's probably still going to call no matter what the size. And so we bet 75 into 125 and he pretty quickly makes the call, which is usually a sign of having a draw because if he did have trips, he'd have to consider raising or to what size he's going to want to raise. So I think he's more likely to be on a flush draw than a king, but he can certainly still have a king. River now comes the 8 of diamonds, so it does complete the flush. He checks over to us again. Now, I don't see any reason in slowing down. He has to flush us get there, but he can certainly still have a worse king that we're going to want to target for value. I don't like just checking back. It seems very nitty. I also don't think people will ever bluff this spot correctly, especially at these stakes. Like, he's not just going to check jam and some random diamond that he gets to the river with. So if we get jammed on, I think we can make a pretty easy fold because he's just always going to have us beat. We're going to go for value here. We bet $125. He calls pretty quickly. We turn over our hand. It's the winner. And we finally scoop a pot. Feels like the first one we've won in a long time. But nice to get a winner there. We're off to a decent start for the session. Hopefully it all doesn't come crumbling down. Let's see what happens. It folds around to us in the cut off and we look down at Queen Jack off. Going to be good enough for a raise here. We bump it up to $15 to go. The big blind calls and we go heads up to a flop. Flop comes down Ace King 6 with 2 hearts. So we flop only Queen high, but we do have a good shot to the nuts. He checks it on over to us and we're going to continue with a C bet. I think we usually would be betting small, but this time we decided to go for a bigger size and bet $25. I think this is actually a mistake. I think in the later positions we want to be using the 1/3 sizing, but if we opened an early position, I think it's fine to go closer to pot on boards like Ace King 6, where we're just going to have a significant range advantage and we're going to have a bit tight of a range. But he makes the call and we go heads up to the turn. Turn comes a complete brick, the 2 of clubs, so changes nothing. He checks to us again. Think we're going to fire out again as a bluff. We have a lot of strong hands we want to be betting here, so we want to bet some hands as bluffs. Queen Jack off functions as a pretty decent one. We do have a good shot to the nuts. We do block some of the stronger Ace X and King X, so we're going to start firing again. Hopefully put pressure on a hand like 7s, 8s that call the flop and can't withstand the heat of a turn bet. We also start to put pressure on a king to set up a river bet if he does make the call. We fire out a bet of $50 and he hangs around again. So needing some help here on the river. We're hoping for a 10. We do get some help, but it's not what we wanted. It comes to Jack of Spades. So now we do pick up some showdown. It's going to be interesting if he checks here on whether we want to check back or do we keep firing. We do now beat a lot of the pocket pairs that we mentioned, but we would have expected them to fold on the turn. We are behind to King X, so it's going to be interesting here if he checks to see what we want to do, but he decides on the opposite and fires out a bet of $180. Really big bet here. Think we're just going to fold. We've only Queen high. Interesting to think what kind of hands he would have done this with. But now I think we have a pretty easy fold. I don't think he's really bluffing when he takes this line. It's unusual to see people just call, lead out as a bluff, especially with the flush breaking off. So I think we're just going to send this into the muck. In this hand, we have the $6 straddle on the button and look down at a very pretty suited connector, 7-8 of hearts. The small blind limps into the pot and there's 2 other callers in middle position. We're not going to let these away. We're going to put the limpers tax on with a nice hand here. We bump it up to $35 to go. The small blind calls, one of the limpers gets out of the way and the other one calls. So we're going 3 ways to a flop here. Flop comes down King of clubs, Queen of diamonds, 2 of clubs. Pretty good board for our range overall, but terrible for our hand. The small blind checks, middle position checks, and we decide on a check back. I think if we were heads up, we could consider a small bet here, but I think with 2 other players in the pot, we don't even have a backdoor flush draw. I think if we start betting this hand now, it's just way too wide. We're just going to be bluffing essentially every hand we open in the pot. So I think 3 ways we want to proceed with a bit more caution. We're going to want to check this one back and see what develops on the turn. Turn now comes the Queen of hearts. It gets checked to us again, and now I think with no showdown, we're near the bottom of our range. I think we can certainly start bluffing now. We can credibly rep a queen. It would make sense for us to check back some Queen X on the flop, and now that we make trips on the turn, we can start betting, especially when the 2 boys basically show no interest in the pot. So we're going to take a stab at it here. We fire out a bet of $55. They pretty quickly fold, and we get a little bluff through here. The $6 straddle is on the button. There's 2 limps in middle position and we look down at Jack 10 off and the low jack. Usually wouldn't raise this up, but we want to ISO one of these players, get them heads up in a pot. We make it $35 to go before the hijack calls and the cutoff calls. The original limper surprisingly end up folding and we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes down 10-9-7, so we flop top pair with a gut shot. I think out of position here, this makes a fine hand to check. We could bet, but we're out of position against 2 other players. We don't have the best kicker, so I think this hand makes sense as a check. We have a decent top pair. We do have outs if we're behind. Just a bit of pot control, so we check it on over. The hijack bets out $3, 1 big blind. The cutoff calls, so this is pretty weird. This is something you don't really see that often. We definitely can't let them away with this. We can't just call, let them see a turn for that cheap. Also, it caps, especially the cutoff, gets capped pretty hard because any of his strong hands would raise, and I'd also expect some of his draws to raise. Also, with the hijack, I think his strongest hands would not bet $3, and I also think some of his draws would want to bet a bigger size because he's never expecting to get any foul. So this is a pretty weird bet. It makes me confident that we have the best hands. So I'm going to raise here, not let them off that cheaply. I raise it up to $60 to go. The hijack calls and the cutoff gets out of the way. So we're going heads up to a turn here. Turn comes another 7, pairs the bottom card, but I think we want to keep going for value here. He just can't have any really strong hands when he just takes this line. I also think if he did have a 7, I still don't think he'd bet $3 and just let people basically see a free turn card. So I'm not as worried about the 7 as you'd usually be. We're going to continue going for some value here and bet out $75. He goes into the tank for a couple of seconds before raising to 225. So this is really weird here. I'm trying to think what hand he could have. He's representing essentially only a 7. I don't think he would take this line with any sets that he flopped. If he's flopped a straight, he's just never going to bet $3. So he basically has a 7 or nothing. And I think we just don't believe him with that $3 bet. I think if he had a hand like a 7 and a straight draw, he's going to bet a bigger size on the flop. Even if he bets like 20% pop, but betting one big blind is pretty fucking weird. So we're not going to believe that. I think he's just acting the bollocks, and we're not here to fold against them spoofers. So we make the call. River now comes a jack. It does complete the 4-liner to a straight. It does give us a better 2 pair than the board. So we do now beat better 10s than ours, even though I don't think he has a 10 with how he's played that. We check it on over to him again, and he goes all in for his last $180. And now I think when we call the turn, I don't think we want to fold the river. Even though an 8 does get there as a straight, I think he's just played the hand so weird. He's just told a story that's not believable. I think our decision was made on the turn. I don't know what he's up to. If he does have a 7 or an 8, GG. I think, like, what can we do? We just played it so odd. I think when we call the turn, we're just never folding the river. We're just going to put on our hero cape. We flick in the call, and he turns over 4-5 offsuit for a complete airball hand that he just turned into a bluff. I don't know what he's doing on the flop. I don't know what he's doing on the turn. And then on the river, I can see he came that far. He thinks he's going to get me to fold, but I don't fold. If you've been watching these vlogs for a couple of episodes now, you'll see that I definitely don't like clicking the fold button. So he just makes a massive punt, gives us a couple of $100. We'll take it. We always like getting free money from people when they just want to spew off. So nice hand, fella. Please continue doing that in future games. We're going to wrap up the session here, so I'll see you now on the outro. Right, so back in the win column. Always feels good. We were into the game for $600, so we bought them for $400, topped up 2, and cashed out $1,050 for a total of $450 win. Not the biggest win, but when you've been getting crushed, you'll take any win at that stage, so good to get a bit of confidence back. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Helps out the channel, helps us grow. We will be back soon with some 2-5 content. We're going to jump back in, blasting in the 2-5 streets. So congrats to the winner. We will do more mystery hand competitions, and as always, I will see you on the next one.